Hello, welcome to the Honest Wargamer. I'm your host, Rob. It's the AOS Mondays show, and I'm joined by my incredibly salubrious co-host, Nathan Prescott.
Hello, I'm here.
Excellent.
Again.
Okay,
Still.
excellent. And then also joined by Dan, unsupervised, all the way, the Australian in Canada, the man, the myth, the legend himself.
Hello.
For podcast listeners, both of my two co-hosts have raised their arms instead of saying hello.
I threw my hands in the air like I just didn't care, and then I realized that for the podcast listeners, that was just a moment of silence where I know what all of them just did. And if you did do this, you are legally obligated to like, follow, and subscribe somehow on whatever thing you're doing. Is you just checked to make sure that you hadn't accidentally like bumped pause with your leg. That's what the podcast listeners were just doing, because they were like, "Oh, it's weirdly silent for an uncomfortable amount of time twice. I must have bumped pause." You didn't bump pause. We just were very excitedly flailing. I think is the technical term for it. So sorry for that, but also gotcha.
We actually did speak, but it was a delusion. Segue. Today's show, we're going to be talking about the upcoming Flesh Eater Corpse release, and also, excitingly, some other little bits. Mainly how people hate clocks for no real reason. They just hate clocks.
Fuck watches, man.
Yeah, watches.
Time is a construct.
Yeah, exactly. Not even linear, apparently.
It's a construct of the man, and I'm not going to let the man use a circle to get me down.
Yeah, exactly. Nathan, as a kid in the sweet esky that is in Zimbabwe, telling the time, was it like a sundial situation? What's the situation?
Cheeky. No. Didn't use a sundial.
You didn't use a sundial?
Just see if the sun is up. No. Just use the sun. If the sun's up, it's daytime. And if the sun's not up, it's nighttime.
Perfect. Did you get up for school in the daytime? What's the situation?
Daytime.
Daytime.
Yeah.
Daytime. Not nighttime.
Not daytime. Not nighttime school. Daytime school.
Yeah. Dan, was it? Would you wake up at the bellowing of the first kangaroo?
Yeah, we've got a very holistic approach to time in Australia, where it's like we just kind of, as a community, accept when the major day predators have woken up, and we give them a moment, and then we get up and get on with our day. And then at the time where it changes over to the night predators, we just know. So Australia, we don't use clocks. We just use the screaming of people being murdered by animals.
Perfect.
To tell the time. We're like, you'll hear a really high-pitched scream, and you're like, oh, the spiders are awake. Okay, so that must be, it's about the middle of the day. And then, you'll hear a different one. And yeah, that's how we do it. It's basically if you hear like a series of thumps and a groan, you're like, the kangaroos are out. Okay, so it's probably dusk. And it's I find it a really efficient system. The problem is that at Australian Warhammer events, that's our real major issue, is that they just have a bunch of 40k players in a cage, and they just release animals around there so we can hear the scream. And it's really tough, and it's obviously the attrition rate is spectacular. But I mean, if you're gonna have to sacrifice a 40k player and an Age of Sigmar player, you know which type you've got more of and is more expendable.
Yeah, that makes sense. Actually, one of the lesser-known facts about Warhammer tournaments in the UK is because most of them are held in schools. That's why all those events start at 9 o'clock in the morning, because that's when the bell goes. So, like, they can't do it later. Like, the bell goes at 9 and, 1 or 12. So they're like, yeah. So that's why. Yeah. Like, a lot of people don't know that about Warhammer tournaments in the UK, which is interesting. Which is why I think all the events in Zimbabwe start at 5:30, Nath, or something, 6:30.
No, 7:30. We used to start school at 7:30 in the morning.
What a crime! What a crime! That sounds like.
That's great.
Why?
What else are you going to do at 7:30 in the morning? May as well go to school. And then you finish early because you started early. So we'd finish school at like 1:30, and then you get on with swimming and stuff.
1:30 in the afternoon. It's barely a day.
Yeah, 7:30 till 1:30. Well, you start at what time? 9:30 or whatever.
8:30
And finish at 3.
or something like that. Yeah, 3:30. I don't know.
Honestly, I think we all need to accept that we need to start Warhammer tournaments earlier because rounds are going to be 6 hours. So the only way to get those in, the only way, like, okay, if your round 5 or 6 is going to be a 6-hour round, that's an 18-hour day. Now you're going to need at least a 13, which as a film employee, I'm fine with. That's actually, I'd be down for that because I still operate at hour 18. But I think what we really need to do is just go like, okay, so we start at 4 a.m. Round 1, 4 a.m. till 10. Quick little half-hour break. Then we go 10 till 4, 10:30 till 4:30. You know, just cheeky another
Maybe
6.
5.
And then 5 till 11.
Yeah.
And so that way everybody gets a full 6 hours of their game.
Perfect. This is
Right. And you only need to get to turn 2 or 3. So that's means you can really enjoy one turn every 2 hours.
Yeah, that'd be perfect. Nathan, your thoughts on playing like 4 5-hour rounds?
That's normal, isn't it? Isn't that what I do all the time?
Which TOs let you do that?
I don't know. I've not seen any try and stop me.
I've not seen it. I literally just ignored them. Round's over, mate. Not till I say it's over. Dan is referencing, of course, that this weekend Games Workshop held a Warhammer tournament, and they made the smart decision that clocks were not a necessary feature of this high-end competitive tournament, the Warhammer Championships, and much to everyone's surprise, it caused an issue. Specifically, the final round taking, I think it took 4 hours. I think it was 4.5, 4 hours. I think it's 4.5. But they finished round 2 after 4.5 hours. Is where they were finished.
But they'd only had 2 turns.
2 turns, yeah.
And
After 4 hours.
After
Wow.
4 hours, yeah.
They really grinding. Was it like the guy the winner is the one whose plane is taking off last? Cause
the winner was probably the person who didn't get food poisoning because apparently a lot of people got food poisoning.
Yeah, it's Atlanta.
Yeah. You say that like so just everyone in Atlanta is constantly doing bum wheeze. Like it's a bad place to be.
I think. Go on, then.
Oh, I was going to say, given that we're talking Legion of the Bland, thank you very much. I did a battle report on a YouTube channel called Saga of Dice recently. Thank you for watching it. It was an absurd game because that's how I like to play my poo flinging dudes. But the person I played in that was Carson the Meat King, who was top 8 at the Worlds. And I think he might have been very close to best overall, which is wild. Awesome. Yeah. But
how
Legend
did he
of the
do with the food poisoning?
He got it. He got it.
He got it.
He got it.
He got it. By the sounds of things, because initially it was like people like, yeah, it's just kind of the foreigners. But then when I started hearing stories of like the locals getting it, I was like, something's fishy here. My theory is that they're Skaven, because poisoning is obviously a big thing for Skaven. They love a good poisoning. They absolutely love it. But they're also not very good at like just making sure it's only their enemies that get poisoned. So my theory is that the Skaven did a poison, but they unfortunately did a poison to everyone.
That's why the final was 4 hours long, because they both had to, like, every 25 minutes they were both absolutely running to the loo. Yeah, like they were just
Rob, I'm gonna put something out there.
Yeah.
Where I don't know when the last time you had hardcore food poisoning is. You don't run. because the impact of that will loosen something. You shuffle. It's like you walk as if you're on like the travelators in an airport. It's like just a flat escalator to get you to a place faster. That's how you walk. And genuinely, that would have been a very funny stream, like on the last couple of days there, just watching people going like, but I'm pretty sure they were just strapped up with adult diapers for the last round.
Yeah, yeah. Imagine the power move of just like, you just look in your opponent's eye for a moment and they go, "What's happening?" You're like, "Just 1 second. Yeah, I've just shit myself. Okay. I'm outside of 7 inches." Yeah, like just the fucking stare. Yeah.
Yeah, just unbroken, your head slightly tilts, and then you're like, "Do you want to redeploy?"
That's good. That's really good. Okay, yeah, so the reference is that this weekend, congratulations to Spoon, who won the event. I did talk about this in the Stats Center already, but yeah, Games Workshop held their Golden Ticket Pyramid Scheme event with no clocks over in Atlanta. Lots of people got food poisoning, very definitely. Yeah, a lot of people got food poisoning, and the event was won by someone who had to play 12 games of Warhammer in 4 days. And then
wild.
I think the final was 2 games. One round was 3.5 hours, one game was 3.5 hours, and they only got to like turn 3, and then the second game was 4 hours. So it was 7 hours of Warhammer over 2 games for 5 rounds of play. It's just pretty rough. Nathan, real talk now. Like, money's not an issue, and everything else, Could I get you, just take that off the table? You haven't got to work, none of that stuff. Could I get you over the course of 4 days to play 12 games of Warhammer?
Over 4 days, played 12 games.
Nathan, are you doing math?
Maybe.
Maybe.
Is that what you're doing?
I thought about it, and then I thought, no. Yeah, I reckon I could give it a go. I don't know. I've never tried it. Let's find out.
Okay, all right.
Out, I guess.
Yeah, okay. Dan, how would you feel
about it? Sounds hard.
It sounds hard. Yeah, it does. Yeah, Dan, what about you?
If I was at a big event, you better believe I would play 12 games over 4 days. But there's a caveat to that, Rob.
Yeah.
There's something I'd need.
Taller
Do you know
tables?
why I'd need
Food
it?
poisoning.
I'd need all of those things. I hate to admit it. I'd hate to admit it for the time revolutionists, but I would need a clock. If I was going to play 12 games over 4 days, I'd need a clock so that I can guarantee my games went for the amount of time, and I always had the break. Like I genuinely would. I'd be dead. I'm not saying I'd be alive, but I'd need some way to mark the passage of time.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. Sundial, Zimbabwe style. Let's
Calendar.
go.
Well, if you're playing inside, Rob, what I'd need 3 things then.
Yeah.
I'd need a sundial, I'd need a TO with a watch, and the TO needs a flashlight, and they slowly walk around the sundial with the flashlight. That's what I'd need. But honestly, if a tournament gives me that, hell yeah, we're good. I'm great. So all the tournament needs is 1 TO per table to do this, and we're golden. Sundials instead of chess clocks. That's actually the best, because a lot of people I hate playing on chess clocks. If you said, will you play on sundials? They're like, you know what? I got no problems with sundials. My problem is the messenger, not the message. They don't like clocks. They're all about suns and dials.
Yeah, it's also not very fantasy, right? These modern technological clocks. Honestly, a sand timer would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Like a big sand timer, that would be really fun.
Think before you skink,
Or
an
like
hourglass.
like a bucket.
I'm about that.
Yeah,
Heck yeah.
Yeah, okay. Good. I want you to know that I don't think you could ever get me to play 12 games of Warhammer in 4 days. Absolutely not, because it was 5 games in 2 days, but then 7 games in 2 other days.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it wasn't evenly distributed. There were more games at the end, which I'm against.
Can you imagine playing the final? You've got your 2 finalists, they play off against each other, and then you're like, hey boys, re-rack. Like just like the devastation of being like, I have to play the same person a second time to win this thing.
Yeah. To be fair, though, to both players, they sound like, let's take shots at the organisation. It wasn't the players' choice. Amazingly, though, their game went on for so long that they couldn't do the award ceremony, and everyone was starting to like look at their clock and like, I've got flights to get to.
Yeah.
Like, this is a thing. So, like, the award ceremony was like hours late. So imagine you turned up and you were like, we've got to wait. And then the TO's like, yeah. They're like, why? Like, when this finishes at a normal time, doesn't it? They're like, no, it finishes when they're finished. And you must be like, Jesus fucking Christ, you're a crazy
done
bastard.
when I say it's done.
Isn't that the craziest shit you've ever heard?
I think, okay, so the reason it's wild to me, because I've had this conversation with a couple of people, because I actually genuinely like the conversation around using clocks. And I've got a couple of buddies who are great players, and they're not big fans of clocks for whatever reason. Some of them have a background in, say, like War Machine, and they were explaining to me, because I don't play it, but I get it. They're like, it's a game based around, like War Machine and Hordes is a competitive game. It's based around a clock. Like the game is designed for it. Age of Sigmar isn't, and it gets messier. So I get that. But I'm a big fan of clocks for a number of reasons. I mean, one, you knowing when your event is going to end is a good one. But this is honestly the biggest point, right? And I'm genuinely serious about this one.
Sorry.
When you have a clock, you make mistakes. And a game of Warhammer, I think we had this conversation at Worlds. If you had 6 hours to play a game, you wouldn't make mistakes. And then the game does truly come down to kind of the dice, and like maybe there's like you that's just kind of it. But when you have to play a game in 3 hours, or at Worlds, say, I think it's like 3.5, because it's like half an hour for pairings, then kind of 3.5 hours and whatnot, you're under the clock. And so what happens is you usually use a little bit more time at the start, and then towards the end, you're starting to rush because you're running out of time, and you make mistakes. It's the same. Like, we figured this out with chess. We figured out clocks with chess. How fucking long has chess been around, and how long have they been using clocks? Because they were like, yeah, if we give these guys all the time in the world, they just think for a million years before they do anything.
Yeah.
Without the pressure of time, there is no pressure to make mistakes, which means you can't force your opponent to make mistakes by outplaying them or putting them in a challenging position. Clocks are necessary. Time is vital, because that's how we take this into a competitive thing. Like, imagine a football match. Imagine a football match where it's just like, just keep going. And they're like, so we don't actually need to score in a timely manner. We can just take our time. It's like, yeah, I mean, they're up by 12, but you guys have 6 days to bring it back. And they're just like, oh yeah, true. We can just wait.
Yeah.
Like, anyway, I'm very, very firmly for clocks for the reason that they force time and they force mistake. And mistake is what it should be about. Like a chess game, when do you usually see like the major mistakes happen? It's towards the end, when they've got such little time left that they're like flying through their moves. That's what Warhammer should be as well. And I don't say that to take shots at any of the players, because the players played the game that they were presented. Yeah. And that is totally fair, totally justified, totally within their rights.
If I knew, Dan, I'm with you. Like, if I go to an event and they're like, look, the game ends when it ends today, I'd just be like kicking back. I'm like, I'm gonna go get a drink. Yeah. I'm like, hey, bro, I'm taking 5 minutes. I'm going to read through everything your shit does. And they'd be like, do you want me to tell you? I'm like, no. I'm going to read it in detail. I'm going to know a lot of stuff. They'd be like, oh, okay. Like, and then I'd be like, just taking my time. I'm like, I'm going to spend 7 weeks on this decision. And like, you're much more likely to do, like, you're much more likely to make much better decisions in that time frame. That makes a lot of sense. Which is it's just
like,
they're
silly.
like,
what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing? And you just like, you sit down, you're like, I'm sorry, I just had a really good idea for my novel, and just like start writing.
Yes. Anyway, like again, I'm with Dan. I don't want to take shots at the players, because I watched a couple of bits of like the finals and stuff. But I did say before the event even happened, I was like, what, there aren't going to be clocks at this event? This is super weird. And I've changed my tune a little bit on clocks over the past few years, to the point now where I'm like, I find it kind of like, do you know, if you take clocks out of the conversation, Dan, like there's a couple of bits I don't really like about the organisation of this event, especially for the Age of Sigmar community. Because number one, so like, okay, these are two amazing competing factors about this Age of Sigmar event run by Games Workshop from this weekend. They were like, all right, this is the best of the best, the creme de la creme of people who've won events from around the world. We're going to get them together. They're going to play in an event together. You're like, okay, cool. But we're not going to use clocks because that will disenfranchise casual players. Okay? And you're like, right, okay, casual players are a little bit scared of clocks. They find them intimidating or they're not really sure how they work. Okay, fair enough. Okay? And then we're going to make them play for 12 fucking rounds. Yeah? And you're like, okay, that's quite a lot. Yeah? And those rounds will never fucking end. Yeah? And there'll be a judge on them and they'll be streaming it. Yeah? And there'll be someone sat at their table. And then that's where this condition, you'll be like, yeah, I reckon a clock's fine in that environment. Like, if I'm honest, like, I don't think a casual player is looking at that far. Like, I don't think Age of Sigmar has been benefited by the concept that there was a 4-hour final where they only got to turn 2. I don't think casual players are being like, yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I can't wait to sign up for that. That sounds great. Like, you know.
Well, you know what was just put in the chat, which I'll say Jado-san kind of nailed it. It was like, yeah, I bet casual chess players are terrified of clocks. Like, this is going to blow everyone's mind. When I was in primary school, I was a chess guy. And I remember like literally learning the rules of chess. And then like the first game I played at chess club, there was people shocked in the chat. There was a clock there, and I was a little primary school kid, and I was like, "Oh yeah, okay, cool, yeah, that's what we do. That's how we play this." Now, if you took a new player, and if there's anyone in the chat that is brand new to Age of Sigmar, and I said to you, when we go to a tournament, it's a 3-hour game. We each get an hour and a half to play our turns and play our game. So what we do is we have this clock here so that we can track it and make sure that, say, I don't use 2 hours and only give you an hour to play. That person, that casual player, that casual brand new player, I would put it to you. You're sitting there and you're not going like, oh God, no, not a clock. You're being like, yeah, no, that makes sense. That's a logical thing to do so that we each get to play the game. Why are you explaining this to me like it's a big dramatic thing? That is a very logical decision that every other sport and like video games.
How did they get to the event, Dan? How did they get to the event? They were required to know the time that their flight was and then the time of the event. Like, they needed to use a calendar and a clock to arrive at that event at that time, and then to be presented with a clock and be like, this is a disaster. I'll never know how to cope with. Also, you've read, like, and I mean this quite nicely, you've read like quite a complicated game system. You've written a list. You are already like in a high percentage of people achieving things, in my personal opinion. Anyway, it's very funny.
The last thing I would say on that is that I know there were a few people who I like was just chatting to, and they actually so the rounds were 3 hours, but then between rounds there was an hour, and that hour was overtime or a break. And I hate that, because that means that what you've effectively said is like rounds are 4 hours with no break.
Yeah.
Like, unless your game ends early, because I know like there were at least 3 folks I spoke to who feel like they couldn't present themselves as well as they could have because they played like a competitive 4-hour game, didn't get to eat, drink, take a breather. They literally took their army at the end of that 4-hour round to another table and started a game against someone who had a break. And now I know that you could be like, well, they should have played blah, blah, blah. But if you've got one person who's taking their time and one person who wants to get it done, that really, really is sad for an event that was supposed to be the creme de la creme, the competitive of the most competitive, to not actually build in a break. I think, and also like, sorry, just to jump back on the clock thing super quickly, Slouching Beast points out a really good thing. As a new player, I feel I'm always rushing decision-making out of guilt for keeping the game from advancing. And I would say, here's my thing that why I think a clock is a great idea, Slouching Beast, is it means you can take your time.
Well,
love
here's,
playing on a
here's,
clock.
here's another one, Slouching Beast in the chat. As a player who's played a lot, I'm always rushing decisions made out of guilt for keeping the game from advancing. Like, I would, Nathan's played me, I will take hours. At certain points, I will take hours to make a decision. And at a certain point, I'm like, I just need to get on with it and crack on. And so, like, that's not a thing that ever goes away. You're always in that position, which is fine.
At the last tournament I was at, like 2, maybe 3 of my games, I played on a clock every game. It was a tournament where they were like, if one player wants a clock, you play on a clock. If you both don't want a clock, you don't have to play on a clock. Which I was like, I dig that. That's a cool way to do it for entry level to make it accessible. It was never really a problem in any of my games. But there were a couple of times where for my army, for Beasts of Chaos, turn 2 is big when my stuff shows up on the board. So I'd clock it onto my time and I'd say to my opponent, just so you know, I'm not going to do anything for at least 5 to 10 minutes. I'm going to take some time. I'm going to look at the board. I'm going to think about my plan. So if you want to go grab a beer or go to the washroom or something like that, I won't do anything till you get back because I'm just going to look at it and think. And this is the first kind of major tournament I've played every round with a clock. And that felt great to be able to go like, I'm going to take some time and not feel like I'm wasting our game time. So I would say that for every moment where you feel like a clock is going to rush you, a clock also gives the opportunity to do the opposite.
Nathan, you got any thoughts on the clock situation?
Yeah, I've not used one yet, so I'd like to maybe give it a bash one day.
You come over and we can play with the clock if you want.
You could apply, You could apply pressure to people by giving them dodgy food and hoping that forces them along a bit.
Yeah, that would work also. I definitely agree. I mean, I think it's kind of like a silly conversation, if I'm honest, with everyone in the world. Like, I honestly think it is. It seems like it's pretty, like, as a TO, and I think that's where a lot of my, like, decision making has changed, like, from player to TO in many ways. I run a lot of events. I've got an event in like 3 weeks at the arena, as an example. And I know I've got 2 people who haven't played, one person who hasn't played for a couple of years, and one person who hasn't ever done a 2,000-point tournament. But being aware of that as a TO, I'm going to if they get, let's say I think Matt G's come in, exactly, like Matt Gouldsborough. If Matt G ends up getting paired into someone's like, Matt, these people, like, it's new. Like, it's absolutely unsurprising that you're going to, like, table them, yeah? Just don't. Just spend 3 hours hanging out with someone, teach them a game, yeah? That's more beneficial to them. Is that okay with you? If that's not okay, because you have paid to be here, I'll pair them into someone else. But Matt, because I know Matt will just be like, yeah, absolutely no problem. I'm going to tell them the entire backstory of my Gargant army, yeah, and off he'll go, right? And I really do think that the conversation around that needs to be a lot more like just honest and open. Like, number one, everyone isn't a number. Every person's a person at an event. So like, I don't know if Tom Whitbrook is still in the chat, but, Tom came to an event the other day, and I know Tom hasn't been playing loads. And he was like towards the slower end, but he just said to people, he's like, I'm going to be a little bit slow, but I'm going to have the best time. Yeah. And he had great fun with everyone. And I think that's just so important to to recognize and acknowledge. And then in like a more pick-up environment, like a big event like we just had with War in the Heartlands in the UK, you just be like, you're on a clock. We don't know each other. I don't have enough mental space for everyone in the room. We just need to, this is what we need to do. We need lunch at 12. We need to be out drinking at 9. Yeah. TikTok motherfuckers, let's go. And so I just think it's just fun, like the conversation, because it's silly. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, it's like the conversation, like, someone came up and was like, I'm a nudist. I want to play in the nude. You'd be like, okay, but you can't. I'm sorry. Like, you can't. We're doing a fully dressed Warhammer tournament. And they'll be like, ugh.
What?
Yeah.
Why?
Sorry, Nate. Sorry.
But the thing I see about clocks, right, is when society, like, outside of one specific thing, solved it a long time ago, and yet people are still like, so for instance, right, driving through America, I did a big road trip, 2 weeks. I drove through so many different states. It was spectacular. It was awesome. I'm pretty certain that there are states with no seatbelt laws or helmet laws for motorbikes. Not seatbelts on motorbikes. Obviously, that would be ridiculous, but like no helmets on motorbikes or whatnot. And I'd be like, on a freeway in the middle of nowhere, screaming down, and then a bunch of bikes would come past me, just absolutely ripping it. And this is going to blow your minds, but in those states, when I Googled it later, fatalities in car crashes is significantly higher than ones without it. And you can just imagine that every year it's like, how do we get fatalities down? What do we do? And then that one person being like, well, hey, how do we feel about helmets and how do we feel about seatbelts? Like, we could just make people wear those. And they're like, no, fatalities are fatal. No, we've got to deal, like, a helmet's not going to stop that. And it's like, well, everywhere else, they don't have this problem when they do that. Like, no. That's basically what I feel like this kind of event had the issue of, where it's like, we've got some issues. It's like, that there are, you know that there are like solutions to that. And they're like, I'm aware of no solutions. Nope. Thoughts and prayers, guys. Thoughts and prayers for the 7.5 hour 2-game games.
Anyway, the clocks thing was, I'm glad that we started off. We kind of got there without meaning to, I didn't even do the intros. We just jumped straight in with one of the chats from the weekend. But I do think it is funny. And that's the same for like terrain maps, terrain. I think player plays terrain is silly. I think there's a bunch of stuff like tournament. And also like, what I really like about the adult Age of Sigmar community, because it did feel like a lot of the feedback from, the winner was talking about the fact that he would have preferred if there was clocks. Many of the people in that bracket were saying they would have preferred if there were clocks. Many of these people are also Worlds players, where clocks are encouraged and used, a lot. And like, it feels like it's a really healthy conversation around a lot of these things from the players. So the fact that the organizers, haven't really cottoned on feels like a really odd thing, and also like is disingenuous. Like, to say we don't want to use clocks, but we're going to absolutely batter someone mentally and physically and make them play 7 games in 2 days is like agree because they want a double elimination, and you're like, just have 1 elimination, just have knockout, and they're like, no. You must suffer for your art.
But again, I don't mind double elimination. I don't mind 12 games in 4 days. But if that's going to be the case, you're saying like, this is the Rugby World Cup. Teams are going to work and you're going to sweat for this. So give them game times. Like I'm kind of all for the I really like the organization of it and the structure. I thought the concept of the pools were cool, going into the top 8 bracket and then double elimination, but then the pools going into the world's bracket to play for their countries. I love all of that. I just think so many of the issues that kind of came up have been solved. Like, I think that's the thing that I found the hardest is I'm like, I feel like we've done this.
Yeah, this seems odd. Like, and it also felt odd watching some of the people who I know better defending it. I was like, what are you doing? Like, just shut up and just like say clocks are necessary. Anyway, also the coverage was awful, but that's a different conversation we could do for another day. Nathan, I know you didn't watch it, but they kept live streaming. Basically, they live streamed the Age of Sigmar matches and the 40k match at the same time. But all 3 commentators didn't know anything about Age of Sigmar. So they would jump to Age of Sigmar table and be like, yes, it looks like there's some orcs here. They were like, and the thing about orcs in 40k is, and they just jump straight back to 40k. Like, they were talking, they were over talking 40k games, Age of Sigmar games with 40k coverage, which again, I found super disrespectful to the players that had turned up. Like, imagine like you like are there and like, you get the call, you're like, you're going to be on stream on Games Workshop stream. They'll be like, holy shit, I'm representing Spain or Sweden. I'm representing my country. Like, how, like, oh my God, I got to really focus, try my hard. Like, this is the best bit. And then you just hear 3 people saying, winner, chicken dinner over your Age of Sigmar game while talking about 40k. And you'd be like, bro, like, fuck off. The other version was you could listen to it completely in French, which was hilarious, yeah, because there was like 2,000 French people, and I would just wade in. I'd be like, bonjour, motherfuckers, yeah. I'm like, and I just plainly refused to speak French, and I was just like, what turn is it? Yeah, I was like, I know you know English. Don't you fucking pretend you don't know English, yeah. And they were like, oh, it's turn 2. I'm like, thank you, merci beaucoup. It was really good, and also I need to shout out one person, Thibaut specifically. So Thibaut from the Belgique team, so Belgium, one of the players, he got knocked out kind of day 3, and then he streamed for the 2 games on the last day, the 2 final games, and he spoke. He streamed in French and English for nearly 8 fucking hours. And Dan and me have done, Nathan, you and me, all 3 of us have done live coverage, commentating over a game that's 4 hours long and doesn't get out turn 2 is nightmare fuel.
When you only have one table to cover as well.
Yeah, you may as well talk about 40.
Like I would say, Rob, that Worlds broke us a little bit by the time we finished, because we were trying to do we didn't try, we did 8 tables around. That was mad. The alternate terror is 1 table with 2 turns for 4 hours. That's
I'll take
like
8 tables. I'll take 8 tables every time.
Yeah, Rob. Like I'm thinking like next Worlds, I'm just like, okay, fuck, here we go. We're gonna need to get the reps in, get the practice, be ready for that madness. But if you said we're actually only gonna do 1 table at Worlds, I'd be like, oh shit. Look, I'd say 2 things. My feedback of the coverage would be 2 things, and they're not great, which is the truth, but it's because I love Age of Sigmar. Watching the tables, and I watched almost all of the games because I was either doing something and I was like, hell yeah, I love me some War Dollies. But I would say the first thing is that the thing I found really disappointing was that it was incredible. The play on the tables was spectacular. Some of the moves and the things people were doing and thinking about were high level, but the kind of stuff that you just don't think about naturally. And now the defense of that could be like, well, yeah, the casters maybe didn't know Age of Sigmar, but they were casting generally for everyone. That's a lie, because as soon as it went to 40k, we had in-depth, nuanced understanding of the game. But when we came back to 40k, we didn't know that we couldn't rally after the hero phase. And so, like, the reason I say that is that it did a disservice to the game. Like, if you're watching rugby, right? Or soccer, football for people from across the pond, because I know that upsets you when you hear it said a different way because you like your words. And someone's explaining to you, oh, they're going out this way. Now you'll see they're drawing people to the left so that they leave their winger exposed. Their plan is probably to get it across to the wing and try to assault the line over there. You as a casual person or someone who doesn't understand the game of rugby hears that and goes, oh, that's cool. I can now recognize that strategy and that tactic on the field. That's great knowledge. If they just went like, oh yeah, they seem to be going to the left. Like, it's not, like you actually gain more from learning about some of those subtle little plays, and it makes the game look as cool and fun to play as it is when you realize that there is that there.
Also,
So
the drama is also so important as well. Knowing, so like I watched game 1 of Tom with his Skaven list versus the Spoon with his LRL list, and Tom tried to do bridge. Death Frenzy. On his Plague Sensor Bearers, and Tom cast it, used a primal, and then immediately it was just like, okay, that's auto unbind. He's like, yeah, that's always going to be the auto unbind. That's always going to be, yeah, right. And just knowing the cast, thankfully they had Tebow casting, so at that particular situation they knew. Anyway, it was just it was weird because you have this kind of they made the effort, and by effort I'm really stretching the word there, to have people crowdfund their own tournament in America for some reason, and then to have the effort to then basically tell the Age of Sigmar community to fuck off. And someone in the chat's pointing out, oh, you shouldn't talk about this, you should talk about the lists, or you should talk about something else. But I've spent 5 hours today already talking about all the lists from the weekend. I don't need to do that anymore today. What I need to talk about is the fact that the company who made the game held a world championships for the game, and then they were very disrespectful to our community's game for several hours, several days, and it's a weird flex. I think it would be better if they just didn't stream it. If they just left it, that would have been preferable to being we know we don't here is us obviously not giving a fuck. Does that make sense?
And well, the last thing I'll say, on that point, Rob, is that the stream was sponsored by a new Age of Sigmar video game, and they were giving out stream keys, they were doing question keys for people to win win those Stream Keys, which again, great, super awesome. But then they didn't cover the Age of Sigmar Grand Final, and half of the questions they asked to win Stream Keys were based off the 40k games.
Okay, we don't need to show it. We don't need to show it anymore. There will have been some really good elements from there. Like they had Tom over from Alliance Open doing some of the TO in. I saw I saw Old Town Throwdown there. I saw Gareth. I saw a couple of other people there, like doing a good job and like doing some community relations stuff. But it's just super weird to have watched all it was just weird. It felt like you walk away from a weekend of what should have been a big deal for the Age of Sigmar community, and then it was like you're the shit kid. Do you know what I mean? It's like, yeah. Okay, all right, like I'm dressing you up in your little suit, and you're like, okay, why are we going? We're going to your sister's graduation. You'll never get that. You're an idiot. Yeah, and then you get dragged off, and then the whole.
I just want you to see it. Yeah. I want you to see what it could be like for you. If you were better.
Yeah, if only you sold more, then you would be better. But you're ugly as fuck. Come on, kid. Right, and then you take him off, and Anyway, it was an odd thing. So that was the weekend. But while that was an odd thing from the weekend, there was some incredible shit from the weekend. So we should talk about that in a minute. Before we do, though, weirdly, I've done this arse backwards. I haven't asked you how you both are. Nathan, you been okay? Done any Warhammies? What's been going on?
Yeah, I've been all right. I've been unfortunately had to drop out from the War in the Heartlands tournament on the weekend. Just some work stuff kicked in, so no Warhammer for me, unfortunately. But hopefully I'll try and get to one of the one days at the TSN Arena just after Christmas. I believe you got a few between Christmas and New Year.
So we're running events.
At least one of those.
Yeah, we're running one dayers between. We did this last year, and it's my favourite. Dan, I would love you. I'd love to see you in a Christmas outfit for 1 year. But it was we run an event from the day after Boxing Day till the day before Christmas Eve. So like kind of 4 days, because that period between then is like almost doesn't exist. It's like temporal. Yeah, you're like, what is this time? So I just run a bunch of one dayers. Yeah, there's no clocks. And then if someone does complete all if someone does complete all 4 days, then they also get a golden ticket. But just to my house, I'm going to call it the World Championships. That's also something I should say. I'm just going to call it the World Championships. That's because it's the Christmas World Championships, Dan.
Yeah, I was going to say, the thing is, you need something specific in there, because when you say, I actually don't, there's so many world championships that I actually don't care about them. But as soon as you put in something else, that's great. Like, for instance, Americans calling it the World Series of Baseball when they're largely the only country that plays it. So you they throw series in there, and you're like, great, awesome, perfect. So just slide something in there, like the Christmas World Championships, or the Reindeer World Championships, or the, I don't know, Snowy Tart World Champion, whatever you put in there, just to give it give your championships of the world some specificity and some goddamn clocks.
Yeah, I'm into that. So you might be coming to some, Nath.
Yeah, that's the plan.
Oh my god, I'm gonna clock you out so fucking hard on round 2. I'm like, dice down, bitch.
Nice.
Yeah. You best get practicing. Don't do what a Nathan Prescott wheel are. I've got 1 unit here of Spider Riders, and I have also got 1 unit of Boingrot Bandits, and I've got 1 unit of Squigert, and I'll be like, any of these reinforced? You're like, no. Yeah, I've got 1 unit of Snufflers, and I've got 1 unit of Gobapalooza. I'm like, okay, you just repeat 1 war scroll. Save yourself. I'm 19 drops, Rob.
I'm 19 drops, and I also have a bunch of Legends units.
Are you going to bring Gits? Do you think? Oh, he's gone. Perfect. He got pissed. He got pissed at us. Okay, all right. So you've been okay, though, other than not being able to get to play at the minute?
Yeah, other than that, yeah, all good.
You look all set up in your new house. Are you comfy in your new house?
Yeah, we're getting there.
Yeah.
I'm surrounded by, stuff still, but I've got nothing behind me, so that's the main thing.
You got a plant?
Yeah, you look professional now.
Yeah,
Okay.
getting there.
All right, Dan,
Need a
how have you been?
haircut.
I'm great. I'm good. I'm still just riding high in this weird, like, it's like I did some kind of hit of a very concentrated plastic crack drug, because I'm just on this war dolly high that doesn't seem to be ceasing, and I'm digging that hard. The big I edited a video finally and put it up on the YouTubes. It's dumb and it's stupid, but if you need 5 minutes to kill, go and have a look, and I'll put out some more of those. But yeah, other than that, I'm just living the dream.
They were great. It was great, Dan. I love that video. It was great. It was really good.
Well, I think.
Do you want to tell us about the concept behind it?
Yeah, sure. The concept is he who forgets history is destined to repeat it. And by that, I mean Age of Sigmar has some absolutely ridiculous and bullshit moments in history. And I think it's sad that they have been forgotten. So I figured I'd do a stupid little 5-minute video series on some of the dumb moments that existed in war in Age of Sigmar's history. And yeah, so that's where what it is. The first one is about Goutfire Scorch. If people remember when that was a thing,
It's actually quite fun. Like, one of the things I was going to do last year as a project, but it didn't really pay off because Worlds happened or something like that, was what I wanted to do was tell the story of the current meta, but as a story. Does that make sense?
Right.
So I wanted to do
yeah.
the past 3 to 6 months of stats, and I wanted to be over the past 6 months, the armies of the OCR Bone Reapers have been pushing back the forces of Khorne. Seraphon have been kept under
That'd be cool.
Yeah, I thought that would be really fun to build up the story from the actual results. Would be a bit cool. But I was I don't know, I don't know anyone who would care about this, because the lore nerds would be ugh, tournaments, and then the tournament guys would be ugh, reading.
But you would be speaking it to them, and that's what they're about. They don't, they could do that.
Yeah, they would be okay with that. That's true. But it's a cool idea. What's the next one lined up going to be?
The next one is Rob. You may remember a moment in history when a single grot netter did 192 damage with a single attack.
He did.
And that's the next one.
You're right, Dan. I had forgotten about that. The game is not in a silly place.
We should appreciate that happened. And if we forget the grot who did 192 damage with a single attack, we are destined to repeat it. Also, it's hilarious that we regularly talk about how powerful nets are, and yet we forget when the net was a weapon of mass destruction.
Yeah, it was. It netted all of our hearts. That's a great time. I can't wait to watch that video again, because that was insane. Was that second edition? So the lead up to the entire of second edition, they were you now will be able to do command abilities more than once, and we kept saying, if you let them stack, that's going to be a problem. And then, literally, you heard it day one. You were they were you're going to be able to do command abilities more than once. And then you immediately go, well, don't let them stack. If you let them stack, that'll be a disaster. And they were no. And you're okay, I assume there's just a core rule you can't stack command abilities. They were no. We've individually FAQ'd each command ability in the game. And you're what if you've missed one? They're what? And then
we haven't.
And then a grot comes in with a net. Yeah, just nuking units.
It's great. There's a bit more story behind it, and the Loon King in charge of that moment, Donal. Big thanks to him if he ever hears this. But we've been chatting, and he sent me some information about it a long time ago, so I could have some factual stats and some photos from the moment that it happened. But I just think these are the little moments that I feel like we've moved on, and they're hilarious when you think about them in context. When you go back and think about it, and you're this is ridiculous now, but do you remember when Skaven used to just deploy into combat and mortal wound your entire army off the board? And you're oh yeah, that's right, they did. And then that's gone away, and then you're what was next after that? And I think there's just all kinds of ridiculous, dumb stuff. So that's what that is, and it's actually been a lot of fun because for me, I've been getting to like dip my toes into the hot springs of old Warhammer, like old Age of Sigmar past, and I'm like, that's right, and like find all of these things, and then people message me ideas as well since I put that first one out, and they're like, hey, do you remember this? I'm like, I do now. That's awesome. Like everyone has those moments, and I think it's so cool.
Can I give you my favorite one?
Go for it.
And see if that's one of the ones you want to do. My favorite one used to be, but this is kind of an English scene thing, is you used to be able to make 1-drop Sylvaneth lists. And so what would happen is people would run like 1-drop Sylvaneth lists. They would turn 1 deep strike all of the dryads onto the board, as well as putting down like 7 forests, and then would just run the clock down for 3 hours. And it was easily the most boring time in the history of the universe. I'd be like streaming a game, and I'd be like, he's done the thing.
We'll be back in 4 hours.
It was so shit. I was like, oh no, this sucks. Oh, thank you to some Norwegian dude for donating a gift subscription to Nathan in the chat. Let's go.
Thanks, mate.
Thanks, mate.
Hi.
All right, Dan.
He's got me.
I'm looking forward to seeing more of those. This can be great.
Groovy. Thursday. Next one should be out on Thursday.
All right, perfect. All right, well, that's cool. Have I done any hobby? I have done some hobby, lads. I've done some hobby. Yeah.
Are you working on your cities, dudes? Or
I am working
else?
on my cities, dudes. You're absolutely right. My cities army is now built, including Barry, which is really fun. I'm very tempted to get like a free guild general on Griffin, but I'm also like, no, because I'm like completely new cities dude. Basically, that's where I'm at. Like all new minis. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to that. Some of the minis were really easy to build. Some of them were a disaster. So like Fusiliers.
I thought you had a general on Griffin.
No, I gave a bunch of my old like my old world stuff. So a couple of years ago, when I went over to an event in Canada, Val had started playing Warhammer Fantasy Battle 8th edition. And then he was like, oh, can I have all your old world stuff? And I was like, because it's basically all legend stuff from AOS. I was like, oh, fuck it. Yeah, go on. You can have it. But since then, I've regretted that massively. Basically. But whatever.
Especially that lad on the Griffin. Because he used to be Sigmar, didn't he?
Yeah, Carl Franz.
Except he had the wrong... Yeah, Carl Franz.
He had the wrong sword, didn't he? But yeah, that would be really fun. So yeah, I've built the army, and now I'm just like planning on doing the paint job. But I'm in Canada on Wednesday, playing a Warhammer Fantasy Battle tournament at the weekend. Ooh. Exactly. So I'll be returning to the old world. Well, the other old world. So not technically the old world, like
the new old world.
No, I'm returning to the old world.
Oh, the old world.
Yes.
The original old world.
Yeah, I'm returning to the OG old world.
The old
world.
The world that was.
Yeah, the world that was. So I'll be there. So I'll be which is going to be fun as well. Like, I'm looking forward to popping over. I'm going to see a bunch of like legends and some really fun people. So I've just kind of like built the whole city's army, based the whole city's army, and I've been like, right, when I come back, you're getting such a delicious paint job on you. It's unbelievable. And lastly, hobby-wise, we've started 3D printing our first set of like honest Wargamer like terrain. So I've obviously printed loads of terrain for the venue previously, but I've had designed up some empires of humans in circles or like kingdoms. Terrain.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah.
Which has been really fun. So we've done a church of like Bigmar, let's call him.
Church of the Cog as opposed to Church of the Wheel.
Yeah, you've got it. Obviously, this is also quite fun as well. So I was talking with the designer about like the 8 or 10 pieces that I want. So that's currently 3D printing and should be finished tomorrow, our first like test piece. A lot of like the test piece stuff is because me and the designer are working on stuff that because it's a plastic print. I'm sorry, this is gonna be super techie and terrible, but the way plastic prints work is it builds up layers Like I'm sure everyone's seen a 3D printer. Like it works on layers.
Mm.
So if you were to imagine like an L shape, it can't print an L. Because the first layer that you would make of an L, not an L, a T, sorry. The first layer you would make of a T would just be into air. So you would do the stalk of the T, and then the next part of the T would just be printing into nothing, basically, and it would fall apart.
There's no structure to it.
Exactly. So you kind of make a
You'd have
T-shape.
to do it upside down.
Yeah, that's how you would do it. You do it the other way. But obviously some pieces don't really work that way. So what we've been working on is how to do the correct like angles. Thank you to Disabled Jesus for resubscribing.
Yep. Yeah, good. That's there. Yep, good.
So we've been working on the angles, and they've actually worked out quite well because like doing ramparts is quite hard. Bricks is a little bit interesting as well. Window frames. So the designer hasn't really worked on some of those bits before. So that's been a really fun kind of like cooperative conversation. And that's the first piece of our fantasy, not Sigmar, terrain that we're going to be producing. And even if it's only for the TSN, only if it's like for people to play here, it's actually incredibly exciting, Dan. Like it looks amazing. I don't know if I can send you guys a picture if you want, see what you think.
Yeah, my question to you, Rob, was going to be: are you actually going to design these in sets so they would be a perfect like tournament table set?
Oh
of,
yeah,
like,
that's it. Yeah, that's it.
Garrisonable, this cover, whatever. Because I think that for me would be like that'd give me the vapors. Being like, what is it? Oh, it's a one-click bundle that gives you a tournament table.
Yeah, I've sent you guys a picture now. And
okay,
so
watch it crash Nathan's computer
it's
machine.
it's just in a WhatsApp, so you guys should be able to check it out.
That's wicked.
Yeah. So that's quite fun because it's been quite a fun like design project. Like I'm only telling you about it now because we've been working on this for a while, and then I'm going to make a separate video to this in the future. But it's quite fun. I love the idea that a city's terrain, everything's a castle. So we kind of thought about this, and we were like, okay, take every fantasy building that you can think of, but it's a castle or a fort to protect itself. So that was really fun.
That's great. Cool. I mean, if I was just like watching the show on Twitch or a podcast listener, I'd be really, really upset that I can't see how good this looks right now. But they'll see it one day. See it one day. And you know, you got to let me have something here.
I've put some pictures up actually in our Discord a couple of weeks ago for the guys on the Patreon and stuff, so they could see. So it's not like a secret. I just don't want to like blow the load before it's like properly like been released. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you don't want to get there early.
And also, we've not 100% certain that it's like going to work. Like, I know it's going to sound really silly, but like again, the physics of how to print it is a little bit more complicated than you would necessarily. Even though people can design 3D print stuff pretty easy, it's actually a little bit more complicated to do it at the mass we want to do it at. Anyway, it's been a really, really fun project, and I've been really, really enjoying that. So I think the first piece will be done tomorrow. And I'll put some pictures up. Yeah, which is going to be awesome. Very fun. But my favorite bit was thinking about the types of terrain to do. And obviously, we're going to do a water wheel because Sigmar people love wheels.
Right.
That's the best bit. That's the only exciting bit. Yeah. And we talked about doing like a Dwarden part of a city's army. Obviously, that's exciting for both of you. Yeah. Or an Elven one. But the problem is that like most of the city's book has got nothing to do with those two factions. So I think it makes more sense to just do a purely human one and then do like a dwarven one in the future.
Yeah.
Like, because I don't even know which dwarven one you would do. Would you want a Skyhold or would you want a Fireslayer's city? I don't even know what a Fireslayer's city would look like.
Neither of those. I'd want like a grungy like Forge city kind of thing.
Oh, okay. Like what? Like smitheries and stuff.
Yeah, like imagine everything was a forge. You're just like, what is it? Like imagine you just like kind of you walk to the pub and then you get to the pub and you're like, damn, I bent my shoe, and then you just take your shoe off and instead of like a cleaning polishing rack, there's just a hammer and an anvil on the edge and you just bash it back into shape. Off you go.
That's okay. I like that. That's fun. Okay, so everything's a smithy. Nathan, you agreeing with that?
Yeah, go on then. Yeah. Loads of fires, bellows, hammers, and anvils.
Yeah, that would be good. Now, because it's kind of weird when you start talking about, thanks to DJ Batman for Joining Patreon. Let's go. Oh my god. Just got a notification. What was I going to say? Because what's fun is we've got ahead of ourselves. I don't know about anyone else. You know, when you immediately start a project, then you immediately do like 12 projects after the first project. And then we were like, oh my god, if we were going to do an Ideneth board. But I actually got really stuck on Ideneth. Because I was like, everything's a ship? And it's like, no. Because Ideneth are under the sea, right?
But yeah, I don't think if you were... I'm going to talk about wanky elves, and I know Wolf Priest Carl, at least in the chat, keeps coming at me about loving elves, but I'm going to talk about them because they're bastards. If you were a bastard under the sea elf with your false sense of superiority and you're not having eyes or a soul, like you're probably like the Gloomtide shipwreck is them just lording it up over how good they have it above people. But can you imagine how insulting it? Like they would not live in the ships. You know, like they'd be like, "Oh, we're too good to live in this. We just sink them."
They wouldn't live in the ships,
and
right?
they'd take them to war with us.
Yeah, exactly. They're like, "We bring one, but we don't want to. We want to be near it. We don't want to be in it." Elves.
Yeah, and not to like.
Don't they build stuff with coral?
Yeah, they do, and this is kind of when I want to say this because like. If you kind of like, it's difficult doing under the water stuff because immediately I think a lot of people go Little Mermaid, and I don't want to rag on the Little Mermaid, but I don't really think they did a good job of world building the system of governance. They had a castle in Little Mermaid where the king lived, and then like Sebastian had a place where he played drums, and as far as I understand it, those are all of the locations that existed in that kingdom. So
and there was a place where the witch lived as well with a big cauldron.
That's true. But I don't think she's necessarily plugged into the underwater kingdom economy, is what I'm saying, or infrastructure.
Yeah, that's often whenever I see reviews of The Little Mermaid, the thing that stands out is how many children and adults are saying, "But how does the geopolitical state work, and where are the centers of political power in this under the sea kingdom?" That's always what they're saying. They're like you stupid mermaid, like, watery little wanker, why the fuck do you care about legs when you don't know how to seize the means of production? That's what people are always saying whenever they watch it. And so it's really good that you're considering that because Disney really dropped the ball.
Yeah, they massively dropped the ball. Thanks, Dan.
Yeah, huge.
Huge.
Yeah, and how did those underwater people go to the bog?
Yeah, another great question, Nathan. Like
where is a fish butt?
Yeah, where is a fish butt? So there's like a lot of really good questions. Like as an example, so there's a great question that is unanswered in Age of Sigmar, right? Which I don't know if people know. So ogres, okay? Ogres are like they're a nomadic species, right? And they bring their more pot with them, and they do lots of eating, and like Total War's done a good job of creating kind of like buildings and huts and yurts that they would live in, which are very cool, by the way. But one of the things is, Dan, Nathan, I'm going to throw this to you. Nathan, if you eat a lot, yeah, what follows to be true?
You poo a lot.
Like,
good point.
Yeah, thank you. And like, I gotta feel like that there's someone in the society of the ogres that manages quite a significant amount of, like, a lot of shit.
Yeah, it's a misdesign aspect for sure.
Yeah, the shit shovelers of the ogres.
That's what they are.
No, okay, all right. So this is the other thing. I was thinking about this the other day as well, right? An ogre is like what, twice the size of a human?
Mm-hmm.
I would say that's about right.
Oh no, they're way more. They're like 3 times as wide. They're probably twice as tall, but 3 times as wide.
Okay, twice as tall,
like
3 times.
Their mass is at least 3 to 4 times that of a human.
Okay, so take that to be true, yeah, and therefore a poo is of equal stature, 4 times bigger.
Yeah, except we've established that they eat more and are hungrier.
Okay, so 4 times bigger and maybe more often. Okay, let's
Correct.
just put,
yeah,
okay,
yeah, like,
right. But a Noblar is like the size of like, I don't know, like a 6-year-old. I don't know, like how
house cat. Yeah, I guess.
Like how big is a Noblar? And what I'm saying is I don't think that a Noblar has the physical strength to shovel an ogre poo, let alone multiple ogre poos.
Well, they
That's
work
true.
in teams. They're team. They'll have to.
Like ants.
Yeah, 2-on-1 against each poo.
Rob, I think I've figured it out. I think I've figured out what happens.
Okay.
They don't care. Remember, they're constantly followed by the magic of the Everwinter that's freezing the realm behind them. They just shit, and then they're those dickhead people that just let the snow cover it, and they're like, someone will figure this out in summer. Like, that's what they do, is they just like
They
poo
leave
wherever.
lumps
The
in the snow.
ground gets snowed and frosted and frozen over, so they're like, well, I guess we don't have to deal with this anymore.
Well,
They
but what
move
about in
on,
their
and then-
houses? No, because I know that they're nomadic, but like they do build settlements and stuff. There are little kingdoms of ogres.
I mean, surely you'd go outside your tent.
Yeah, but like, how many? You've already established they poop more than a normal. Like, you live in your tent for like 10 days. That means you've done maybe 20 ogre-sized shits outside your tent. One of you. What if there's 5 of you? That's like 100, Dan. That's an incredible amount of crap. Like that, no one's.
You're actually diving deeper. You need to do a second set of Sigma terrain now.
Yeah.
Because as
Maybe-
has been pointed out in the chat, it's fertilizer. They're fertilizing, and so what you have is you would probably have all of these humans that follow behind a moor path, because the ground has been not only trampled, it's been seasoned with like blood, bone, and shit. It's probably very fertile. The best food in the land is probably grown in the path of a moor tribe.
What in the rear of a moor tribe?
Yeah, behind it. You just follow at a safe distance, and if there's an Everwinter, once that's thawed, you plant. You got perfect. Your veggies are going to be great.
Oh my god! Imagine that faction, the poop farmers of Age of Sigmar.
It exists. It's a city. It's a Sigmar city somewhere, and it's just a bunch of dudes who are just following in the moor path, growing stuff in a big ass line across the realm.
So my point is, when thinking about this terrain, is actually if you poke a little bit of a stick at some of the lore, you really have got a lot. It expands quite rapidly into places you weren't thinking of. So world building.
What was the new ogre terrain thing?
The more bussy.
pit? Is that where the poos go?
No, that's a mouth that eats stuff. Not poo, I don't think.
Yeah, I think it's like it's I think, isn't it their spiritual mouth of their god? I think that might be offensive to throw poo into the mouth of your god.
Yeah.
I don't know personally. I've never been a god, but I imagine if I was, I would find that a bit insulting.
Yeah. I think they probably feed it, but not poo. Probably is what I'm thinking. Okay, right. Well, we've covered that. Anyway, that's been my hobby projects recently. Just as an FYI.
That was a big tangent. That was a big tangent.
Well, see, the thing is all of it becomes really interesting. Okay, I'm going to ask both of you, the Twitch chat and also the people watching at home, if you were going to do a set of terrain for Age of Sigmar, yeah, because obviously I've started with cities. I think cities is the easiest one. Again, sorry, humans, not cities. Like the reason that we started.
I reckon Fire Slayers of the best toilets.
No, not toilet based. Okay, just normal based. The reason we started with the humans is because like there are obviously human settlements in every single like realm. So if you,
realm.
like we could obviously do your normal human city, and then if you wanted to make it like Realm of Life, you could add a bunch of trees and bits to it, which would be really fun. So that's kind of like some fun stuff there. That was the first one. But what would you two want? Like which faction, which army? Chat the same question. Like what would you like to see as a settlement? Because it's about settlements, not just like random bits. I'll give you a minute to think on it, see what the chat is saying.
Yeah, I'm kind of just flicking through like the Rolodex in my head of stuff I'd love to see. I think Skaven, to be honest.
Oh my god, Skaven would be so good.
Like only because I think that there's so much flexibility. Like you can have monster pits, like where they breed the monsters. You can have the tech, the towers where they do the scry acolytes do all of their tech. You've got the sneaky assassin lodges. Like you've got every different, like the pot of pestilence. Like you just have a bunch of really cool different concepts with an overarching style that links them all together. And I think that the Skaven Blight and like the vision of like Skaven under empires are they're like iconic, but not actually ever designed. You know, like they're in lots of books, they're in lots of things, but they've never come out.
We should do this next week because this would be really fun. We should 100p be like, right, like, because now I'm like, okay, Dan, tell me like Skaven society. We know that they have like warriors and storm fiends and stuff, but like a city, rats live there, rats do industry there. Like, break that apart for me. How does that look? Do you know what I mean? Like,
we know that their currency is warp tokens. And they use it for buying things, but you would have like the upper class warp token store where it's like they buy like slaves and breeders and whatever else it is that they get. And then you'd have the lower class one, which is basically like a greengrocer where like all the clan rats are going to buy stuff. But the food that they would buy would be like, what is it? Bucket of arms? Like, oh, damn, I'd love to shell out for feet today, but I can only afford a bucket of arms. So yeah, cool, let's do this.
Yeah, I think it'd be so interesting. Like everyone needs water. Where does that come from? Big Skaven water wheel, classic stuff. Nathan, what about you? Which faction?
Don't know. I guess the Ossiarch Bone Reapers are going to be very architectural, aren't they? And
It's
they
true.
probably don't need toilets.
Unlikely. No.
So they could be quite cool. Or Sylvaneth, very organic.
What, like a Sylvaneth like hold versus just like a Wildwood? The problem is a Sylvaneth Wildwood is actually hilariously pathetic as a piece of like you put it down on a board and then like 3 Kurnoth hunters live in there, and you're like, that's not really that's barely a thicket. Like if Dan and Nathan, if all 3 of us went and held hands and stood in a bush, and that's as far as we, the bush only just extended a little bit past our legs, I wouldn't be like, this mighty forest, how will we survive? The nature
I'd
of
be stoked to be holding both of your hands, though.
Yeah, I agree. Sylvaneth, that's interesting, Nathan. I wouldn't think about that. You're on your hippie arc. That makes sense.
That's
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Anyway,
you know what I'd do because a couple of people have mentioned gits and grots and whatnot. I'd do a festival, like a git, like a grot, like a Gloomspite git mushroom festival.
Oh yeah.
Like so rather than doing like a township, give me
Just
like one of those big week-long festivals where it's like, what's this? This is the trade market. This is the rave tent. This is the external stage. This is the squig pit. But it's just where they go to get lit up on mushrooms. And then, like, somehow a fight has happened. And they're like, you can't wreck Burning Man. It'll be Burning Git. It's the table of Burning Git.
Oh, my God.
There's just a big, like, wood git on fire in the middle of it.
No, it wouldn't be a git, though, on fire in the middle, would it? It would be something like, what would it be? Would it be...
Who's Burning Man? We burn a man. So it would stand to reason that they would burn a git. Or a squig, burning squig.
Yeah, it'd just be a big round ball, and it'd be like burning the sun.
Oh yeah, they'd burn. They'd burn.
But the thing is, they fill it with mushrooms, so when they burn it, the entire festival gets hot.
That's awesome. I love that. Or that's so cool. Like, see, it's so fun, right? Thinking up terrain. I don't think people don't really care about terrain. I think it's actually super important. But anyway, all right. So
people don't care because in a lot of tables, like I'll say this, and I'd actually throw it to the chat as well if they want to, like anyone wants to jump in and disagree or agree. I find that at a lot of events, the terrain is good and like it's great if I look at it, but it's usually like it's the floor, like it's the setting, but it doesn't ever really stand out. But there have been a couple of events I've been to or tables that I've played on where a lot of design and work and love has been put into the scenery, and those tables stand out and it feels awesome to play on them. But it's because like they didn't just build a table with scenery and go, okay, so this is 8 scenery pieces that fit on this mat and gives us this. They like what we're talking about. They built almost a story or like really cool stuff into it. An example I'll give is it was a table that was set in like kind of like a wizard's castle, where some kind of magical feedback had destroyed it. So like everything was shattered and smashed apart, but built into it, it was like a half floating tower. Like everything was really cool. So it was iconic playing on that table. And I still, like, I can tell it to you right now because I still vividly remember how cool that table was because of it. It wasn't just terrain. It was a table with storyline. But that's not what we love to invest our time into, usually playing War Dollies. We invest our time into our army, and the table is an afterthought.
It's a huge undertaking, though. Like, doing a board of terrain is actually a significant, like, undertaking. I think a lot of people are a bit like, meh. Like, they're not that fussed. I think, like, based on my personal experience, maybe it's because actually establishing, like, we've just discussed, I would say that most of the setting is actually established very hands-off. Do you know what I mean? Like, they're like, fire slayers, they live in grimholds. And you're like, oh, what's a grimhold? And they're like, dark and fiery place. And you're like, okay,
it's a hold.
Is there...
And it's grim.
Yeah, are there paths? Like, are there trains? And they're like, it's full of mighty fire slayers. Okay, all right, okay, don't worry about it.
Yeah, I think that's it. It's like, where do they live? It's where there's a lot of them, and you're like, yeah, okay, so you know what they look like because you sculpted the minis. I get that. So where do they live? What does that look like? It's a big hole in a mountain with fire. And what makes it different from any other cave? It's full of fire slayers. Like, God damn it!
Like, just give me something. Yeah, like,
what is
like,
it? It's a dank hold.
Ooh.
What is it? It's a dank cave.
Okay.
Under the ground. Ooh, okay. And what makes it a dank hold? It's full of Gloomspite Gits available in Battletome Gloomspite Gits. Like, just
where do they get their clothes? They don't. Because there must be a Gits haberdasher. Like, there just has to. Like, there has to be a haberdashery. There's there's goblin seamstresses. Like, they exist. They have to. Like,
they're all wearing hoods, all the while.
Exactly. Like,
and the hoods are well designed because they keep their point.
Yeah.
They keep their point.
Yeah, a haberdasher git,
structural,
as some may say. Thank you to
haberdasher
Delis. Yeah, haberdasher git. So obviously, when we do the goblin board now, there will be like a haberdasher git. Like, that would be awesome as well. Like a little stall where there's just a bunch of goblins selling hoods. Like, and it's just all the same hood. Like, on the back.
They're in slightly different sizes, but they have vastly different names. Like it's like this is the hood of hoodwinking. This is the hood of magnanimous victory. This is the hood of sneaky stabbing. But they're all identical and they all cost different prices.
Oh my god! All right, there's so much fun stuff to do. Yeah, definitely. Anyway, like, somehow I've been able to co-opt the conversation into terrain again. Rob's classic. Don't buy a 3D printer, kids. This is all you'll ever do from this point on. Is just be a nerd. All right, so listen. Let's kind of round the show off because we went through a bunch of stuff. I wanted to go through, but in the wrong order. So this is fine. And talk about this incredible preview from the weekend. So we have got the next next battle tome come out, which is the one we've all known is going to be announced, but it's in the form of a FOMO box, and in addition is also going to be the next of the not broken robes, the next of the Dawnbringer stories, which is going to be really fun. And so this is all about the new Flesh Eater Courts, which is really fun. So I'm just going to jump off straight away with the Crypt Guard, which is not a replacement for ghouls. It's in addition. It's in addition to ghouls, which is a new range in addition to ghouls as well. For people who have watched it for some reason till this point in the show and are unaware of what Flesh Eater Courts are, like, well done for getting here. But Flesh Eater Courts are a group of ghouls and undead, which have been transformed by the Grand Delusion. So they don't think that they're the undead, and instead they think that they're a noble household. They think that they're noble knights or warriors or soldiers. So imagine serfdom kingdoms that like Bretonia, etc. But they're all ghouls. But they think they're not ghouls. And it's easily one of the best storylines in Age of Sigmar, I gotta say.
Yeah, Also, I think something I love is that they straddle the line between alive and dead. So, like, Nagash kind of sees them as part of his, but he's also kind of uncomfortable with them because ghouls, I believe, are like you were a human and you degenerated into a ghoul and you kind of got caught up in this dark fantasy. But technically, like where say zombies and skeletons are like just risen like automaton or like souls crammed back into them and forced to serve, these they willingly serve. Like they believe here. They're fanatical in their devotion and their belief, and they are still like fundamentally twisted humanity underneath. They're not just like soulless automatos smashing their way through. There's a great story which I won't do justice because I read it so long ago. I think it was a bunch of Stormcast traveling through like the charnel fields or like woods basically, and a ghoul courtier came out and bowed and was like, "Welcome, lords, to the land of my liege. He welcomes you and hopes you have safe passage and don't intend any mischief while you're here." That was what the ghoul saw, and himself in a doublet and being all regal. What actually happened was it just like walked out and was like, "Ah!" and then just vomited blood at them. So of course the Stormcast were like, "Kill it!" and like stabbed it. And then the ghouls were like, "Oh my gosh, it's a rampaging army!" and they all descended from the trees and tore apart the Stormcast. But like, I just love like that. The comparison of what they see versus what the rest of the world sees is wonderful.
Yeah, these are outrageous. Nathan, you got any thoughts about Flesh Eater Courts before we get into like look at the models?
No, I mean the story's great. The delusional thing is cool, and the new models look fantastic. So yeah, it's good. I mean, their range has been pretty neglected for a while.
Yes.
So
yeah,
this will be good.
It's been massively neglected, and it's it's now the oldest second edition book, and it's getting its third edition book at the end of the third edition cycle. So I think it's been 5 years since we've even seen anything. And we didn't see any. We've seen the Abhorrent Art Regent as a miniature released over that time period. I don't think we saw anything else, but that's what we've seen.
I mean, since the beginning of Age of Sigmar, they've only had like little.
That's the only release I think they've had. Yeah. They had the Endless Spells, the Terrain, and the Abhorrent Arc Regent, I think. So, and maybe a Warcry Warband, or maybe something like that. And yeah, special edition Ghoul King.
They got the Ghoul King on chair. That's right.
Yeah, but this is not a whole new range. This is a whole new additional range, which is super fun. There is one replacement, which I think is the right decision. But we've got a whole bunch of new minis, which is fun. So the Crypt Guard are very cool. So these are ghouls, but these are fancier ghouls. They've got themselves weapons and armor,
and some scattered armor, and they look a little bit more militant.
And they've got a little flag, which I think is very sweet and very fun. And I do like the idea that maybe there's just enough armament that you might be able to do some. There's not quite enough armament on these that you could do heraldry.
Does it look like we have some bare-chested lady ghouls? Like, look at that banner.
So actually, this got brought up by Louise, actually. So this is actually really interesting. There are women models in the ghouls, and they are naked, with their taddies hanging out. And now this is my partner, and she said the thing she really likes about this is it's quite overtly not a sexualized woman.
Yeah,
it's just a ghoul who was a lady previously. So yeah, there's some tatties on these images.
No, I did. Like I pointed out because I think that's awesome. It's like making it just regular in the mortal realms and going like, well, ghouls don't wear. All ghouls are just basically wearing a loincloth, so it wouldn't make sense for us to for them to randomly wear a bra or to cover them up. I dig it. That's the first time I've noticed that. I think that's awesome. But the thing that I think I love the most about this whole release is that the sculptors have just slapped it out of the park. And I know that we maybe spent the start of this show talking about some stuff that we are a bit critical of. However, after like Cities of Sigmar, this release, like just keep it up. You just the sculptors and the designers and the concept artists and everything are they're not stopping. It's just goal after goal after goal, and basically it's me just crying over my wallet being like, stop it, it's already dead. But it's just spectacular.
So I actually went into this. I went into this release, Dan, being like, I'm not going to be bothered about flesh-eater courts. Like I was like, whatever. Like I'm not going to be bothered.
I can't afford to be bothered. But
Yeah.
Rob, are we both bothered?
I'm bothered. I'm bothered.
I'm bothered.
I'm bothered. Yeah.
I'm hot and bothered.
Hot and bothered. Nathan, you got any thoughts on the Crypt Guard minis?
No, they look great. Yeah, this is the first time I've seen them actually. They really look cool. I'm impressed. Yeah.
They're very fun, right? They're very, very.
Yeah.
My only criticism, and it's not because like it's not a heavy one, is that I would have liked to have seen a little bit more like armor and or equipment on them, so I could give them heraldry to be like a bastardized heraldry, if that makes sense. These guys are too naked for me to do it.
Yeah. They look like bigger ghouls with maybe more militant poses, but they could have been slightly more armored so that their like silhouette was different.
Yeah, yes, a little bit, but like that's not to criticize what they are. I just would like to maybe see another sculpt that's like more knightly, which I think would be really fun as well. Then for me, the release, I don't know, maybe the release of the year. I don't know, like I love the city stuff hard, and then Big Bug I think was stunning. I think we've had some very, very good releases. Trug was great, but the Batcav, the Morbeg Knights is what they are absolutely crazy. Very, very cool. Dan, what were your thoughts on these?
Wild. Just, again, the sculpts hitting it out of the park. They're beautiful. They're dynamic. They look... just everything about them. And again, like we've spoken about, they've started to put the sculpts in with... This is the first time we're seeing sculpts with the story of them in mind, apart from the couple of, like the character that they got, the Abhorrent Archregent. This is just wild, and I love it so much. I love that, like, the Batcav's wings are sort of bony and clipped. Like, I wonder if they're going to have fly or if they're not going to have fly, because it would make sense if they can't fly, because the Batcav are like, yes, this is my demigriff. Like they see like a noble steed, and then if it just started flying, they'd be like, super weird. I guess I've got a Pegasus now. Thought it was a horse. Turns out it's a Pegasus. Like the design is great. Everything's great. Feed me more.
Yeah, I think it's very, very good. I agree with you, Dan. I think that they probably won't have the fly keyword. But I think it's also a unit of 3 as well. So, and I said this when we did the kind of review, and I did say that, like, if it comes as a unit of 3, then this means it's going to be somewhere between like Varangard, as a kind of higher end, and Evocators on Dracoline, #get wrecked, on the other end of the on the kind of line. So they've got some real opportunity there for like their power level, which I think would be fun. But ultimately, there isn't a Varangard Knight on the back of it. It's still just some schlub ghoul.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, if you compared that to a Gore Grunter, you would have thought that the lad on the top is not going to hit as hard as a big orc, is he? And not overly convinced how hitty the bat will be, but I guess it's going to be nasty. I wouldn't want to be hit by a bat like that.
No, me either. Yeah, it's big. It's big. These are really great. Nathan, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, they're sweet. Again, the first time I've seen them, actually. I had a look, so... Yeah, I can imagine the Flesh Eater Courts lads are going to be very happy with these.
Yeah, they are. They're going to be so happy with these, I agree.
I think from a design perspective as well, the reason I love these the most is they fill a gap in the layout of
Flesh Eater Courts.
The army. Like, if you think about it, like Flesh Eater Courts have foot heroes and little ghouls, and then they have like slightly bigger with the Crypt Flayers, and then they go up to absolutely massive with the Zombie Dragons and Terrorgeists. But there's this, like, I feel like there's a disconnect in the sizing of the army. This, if you're putting together like an army for a parade or display, or you just want to have this gives you a nice like tie in between your smaller infantry and your medium infantry and your big monsters. So it's not just, here's a massive monster, here's a bunch of little things. Like, it's I love that in the scope of the army, you've got like this now wonderful like size build rather than just going like little, massive.
Yeah.
So yeah, I dig that. I dig that being a three model unit means they're going to be in that bigger, like that next step up from Crypt Horrors and Crypt Flayers.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. I think the profile of an army is really important. It's like, Fire Slayers. We want cavalry and we want artillery. They're dwarfs. Yeah, like you want an artillery piece, you want a cavalry piece. So this is kind of like when some of the armies were dropped, specifically like, Ossiarch Bone Reapers. They were perfect in every way. They've got an artillery piece, a big... They don't have like a monster. But, they've got an artillery piece. They've got frontline. They've got the harvester. They've got the harvester. They've got elite infantry, cavalry. They did it. They had, the kit. So, same with LRL. And so seeing some of those ranges fleshed out, so they do have, you do kind of want every army to have a cavalry unit. I know that sounds lame, but like you do. You just do. Yeah. Like even if the cavalry unit for Dispossessed ever ends up being like steampunk cog machines or whatever, like you want them to have that because that works, right? But anyway, so the back guys are really cool. And then you got this is my only big miss is the Vargulf Courtier, but this desperately needed changing, right? Desperately needed changing.
See, I love him.
Oh, really?
I love him. Yeah.
What do you think?
Because it looks like what it looks like is if one of them went wrong, if a Ghoul King went wrong, and like all of that weird like Wendigo vibe of like long elongated arms and legs, and like I dig it so hard. I love this model. Even if I don't play Flesh Eater Courts, there's a good chance I'll pick up this model because I love the design. Like I love that what we have is an army that says that's all about this delusion, but there's still some kind of thing to them. And then in this guy, it looks like when that delusion goes critically wrong. And while all of the models are like impressively, this is the one that I'm like, I would be terrified to be hunted by this. Where the rest of them, I'm like, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying I want any of them coming after me, but this one gives me a visceral response to, and I love it.
Yeah, okay, that's interesting. What do you think, Nath?
Yeah, he definitely looks a bit more fighty than the other lads, and proper scary. I like his little story. That not all nobles are meant for the burden of command, but he's there to go and fight battle evil wherever he can find it.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, he's going to find it in a mirror every day. That's where he's going to find it. Yeah.
Oh.
Interesting. The reason I don't like him, I don't know. Like this moves away from them being, these are men-ish or ghouls under delusions to just being he's a monster. And you're like, okay. It kind of like it just moves away from what I think is the very coolest element of the delusion, and it just gives a straight monster, which is fine. It's fine. It's a couple of models there, and then we get onto like where it just gets crazy. The Abhorrent Cardinal, which is fun. So this is a literal like ghoul who thinks he's a priest. Which is
he doesn't
hilarious.
think he is a priest, Rob.
I apologize.
Let's be honest. He is a priest.
Yeah, I apologize.
He's the Flesh Pope.
The Flesh Pope. This one I think is very popular. Dan, what do you think?
Love him. Again, love him. This is one of the only ones though that I see and I'm like, oh god, I would hate to paint him. There's just so many tight, intricate details that I'm like, he'd be a nightmare, but grand scheme of things, he's a hero. He deserves it. He's the Flesh Pope. He deserves every moment of it. Except what I would love to see is that skin painted as like red, bloody, dripping, freshly shaved skin. That would be wild.
That would be interesting. Yeah, I think new paint jobs on these are going to be really fun as well. What about you, Nath? What do you think about Flesh Pope?
Oh yeah, he's a proper cool model. Loads of details. Very cool. I imagine he's going to be a good little buffing piece. We're going to see loads of him.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, it'll be also very cool to be like, I'm just going to kill the Bone Pope right now. Like, all my attacks into the Bone Pope. Yeah? Like you're like, oh, a religious hate crime. That's what that will be. So be careful of that. And then we got the Royal Decapitator, which I don't think is quite as great. The Royal Decapitator, so a headsman from the Royal Court, which is super fun. And I'm just going to swip through, and just they've announced that there is that Flesh Eater Court's army box set. Which you get the key guy, you get the Vargulf Courtier, you get a unit of bats, and then you get what looks to be 20 of the new
Crypt
ghouls.
Which I think is cool because they've established, like, you can get the old ghouls there, and a lot of people already have them. I think this is a great FOMO box.
I think this is a good FOMO box that you get the one time. I think. That might not be the case, and you might want a couple of, you might want two, but looking at it, you only get the one, and that obviously comes also with the new Flesh Eater Courts box. So we're going to be in the same position as well, where if anyone remembers when you had the Agents, so you had the City Sigmar box, you had the FOMO box come out, and all the rules were out, but the army wasn't technically legal. So Flesh Eater Courts are going to be in that limbo period where they'll be either using the new army rules at some events or the old army rules at other events. Yeah. Which is, especially with some of those models not getting released at that point as well, because you'll have what's in that box, but you're obviously missing the Pope, you're missing the Headsman, so you're missing some of those key units out of that box when you do get it, which would be interesting. And that I really don't like that as the way that Games Workshop put that out there, because it just puts the whole community in this weird position where something's out and not out.
And also, it's like we're releasing the army, but I'm guessing the Summer King isn't releasing at the same time, which is really sad.
Well, I think they might release them simultaneously. I don't know. So they've showcased they've showcased the book, and then they didn't. Where is the Summer King? He's not in the same article for some reason. Let me go find him. So that's coming out in the FOMO box. You got any plans to maybe get that?
I dig that FOMO box. I think sometimes I see them and I'm a little bit disappointed because I'm like, who is this box for? I definitely know we've had that conversation about some other boxes before. Whereas that one, I'm like, if you're an existing player, you probably want the new hotness, and that has a bunch of the new hotness that you want. You probably want to expand on your ghouls. You probably want some knights. You maybe want to replace your Vargulf, and you'd love the new character. I dig that. I also love that for new players, that's a great army box because there you can get boxes out there that have your flayers, your horror, like your ghouls and your biggie monstery boys. So I dig that this box really kind of sits between both, and I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah, that seems fair. It does look like there are separate articles on the website. So you do get the Flesh Eater Courts book in the FOMO box. But simultaneously, they're also releasing this new book. I'm just going to scroll down. The Mad King Rises. It doesn't say that they're simultaneously, but I would assume that it's going to be simultaneously. Otherwise, you end up in this weird position that we are now with Gitz, where the book came out not long ago, but you've now got Trug, who obviously can be used in the army, but he's not part of that original book. And I think the Rabble Rouser isn't in the Gitz book either, is it, Nath?
No, that came out in the first Dawnbringers thing. Didn't it?
So if you're a Gitz player, you effectively currently need to own 3 books. You don't, but you pseudo need to for the Rabble Rouser, for the Trug, and then obviously the original core Gitz book. So I do think that we might see the Flesh Eater Courts book not contain Ushran in it, which would be super weird.
Maybe this will be like the third, or was it the second Lumineth book? I can't remember. Whichever book came out. Yeah, I think it might have been third. You remember when they came out with 3 books in like 18 months? And they released a new whole book, but then also they put, they were like, so you can either buy just the whole book, or you can buy the storyline book that also has all of the new units added into it. And so it was like, you need either the second Lumineth book and the story book, or you just need a whole new Lumineth battle tome. Maybe they're going to do that, where they're like, the Mad King Rises will include some of it, but the book will have all of the, including the stuff that comes out in the Mad King Rises.
Well, so one of the things,
Mad King Rises will have an army of renown for them.
well, so there's definitely going to be, there'll be 4 armies of renown. Will there be 4? They've said that there's going to be an army of renown for each of the death factions. So there'll be a Nighthorn army of renown, Ossiarch Bone Reapers army of renown, Soulblight Gravelord's army of renown, and obviously Flesh Eater Court's army of renown. So there will be an army of renown for each of the death factions, in addition to Ushran being released, which means we might see. So there's the potential right now for a new Bone Reapers character of some description. There is a new Soulblight Gravelord's character, Vampire on Foot, 5 wounds, 4 up save, please, 4 attacks. 3s and 3s, rend 1 damage too. I just write his war
and the
scroll.
hunger heals D6 if they kill something in combat. Yeah, great, cool.
Right.
Throw it on the pile, and it's just a pile of that exact rule set with maybe a different spell or one different rule or a different base size.
Yeah, that'll be fun. And then, so Soulblight Gravelords, OCR Bone Reapers, Flesh Eater Courts, and Nighthorn. So we might get a new Nighthorn model as well, which, again, not like none of those are guaranteed, but those are currently the options. You know, we've had some releases like the KO Army of Renown, which didn't have any miniatures, and then you just randomly got a new Silverdeath model that's really awesome. You randomly got a new Stormcast Dragon, which is awesome as well. Definitely also feels like that Stormcast Dragon was meant for the 4th edition release, and they were like, nah, we're not giving away a dragon. Bring that bad boy forward. Stick him in something else. Like, there's no way we're doing that.
Didn't they give away 2 dragons at the 4th edition release?
3rd edition
and Karakakrai?
No, those are boxes you had to buy. They weren't in the core box. I mean.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, right.
Yeah. Like that's.
Can you imagine if the starter box for Stormcast was just 3 dragons? Or like a Stormcast player plays. They're like, okay, so you get all of these cruel boys, and you get 3 dragons, and they're like, oh, sick. Man, it's going to be hard for 3 dragons to beat a whole army of cruel boys. And then Games Workshop is like, fun.
We're having fun here. This is what we do. We have fun. Okay, so that's the Dawnbringers book, which is very exciting. But then I think maybe the mini release of the year. Okay, that's no disrespect to Barry. Yeah, the canon man for Cities of Sigmar, but maybe
he's held back by the rest of the canon.
Exactly. Like, he's actually now my free guild marshal, by the way, on foot. I've taken him off the canon crew. Is what he is. So what do we think of this miniature, Ushran? So he is a new Mortarch to join the other Mortarchs, obviously, and so we've got the 4 Mortarchs, 5 Mortarchs, 4 Mortarchs that currently exist. So this is our 5th Mortarch. What do you think, Dan, of this mini?
Spectacular. Just truly, like I was saying, this whole release is incredible, and just like Cities of Sigmar, they've absolutely slapped it out of the park. But of all of the, like, in a bevy of incredible miniatures, this one stands out head and shoulders above the rest. You know, like, and that's genuinely, yeah, it's remarkable. Remarkable work.
It's quite clearly like a From Software, Elden Ring, King Godric. Is it Godric? Like Steel. But I mean, I've got 0 problems with that. Nathan, your first reaction looking at Ushran?
Yeah, he's pretty sweet. He's a big beastie, isn't he? Ooh, yeah. Yep, they're gonna be. He's gonna be a popular lad down at the clubhouse.
He is. I mean, a massive set of tactical rocks here. Games Workshop are doing a lot of, like, most of this mini is rocks now. Like Be'lakor, you're like, whoa, this isn't actually that big. He's just on a lot of rock. Like, if we could slow it down. But yeah, like, he's artificially quite high, I think. I would say that this might be mini of the year. Like, and someone in the chat said, like, it's crazy that Lionel Johnson might win mini of the year when this guy exists.
Yeah.
Like, because this is stunning in every single way. And this is, go on, Dan.
Crown coming out of his head, like a bone crown. The way that those 2 fingers of that front hand, it's just like, he is like regal and menacing and degenerate at, like, truly the blend in this miniature is of design and style choices is something else.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I think. I mean, you could quite clearly see the inferences from Elden Ring. Like literally,
Absolutely.
like, and when this was sculpted versus the release of Elden Ring, it's probably like a literal circle on that Venn diagram, right? Like you can see it, but it's still stunning. That doesn't mean it's not stunning. And I would say that you're going to see a lot more people jump into the faction, and this is kind of one of those things that I really wish Games Workshop would understand. Like, over the course of Age of Sigmar 3, we've had some pretty timid releases, they're like, well, Daughters of Cain are in 3rd edition and you can collect with a brand new High Gladiatrix, and you're like, what? Like,
the thing is, you could literally just use that as a sub for a unit champion in one of your Witch Elf units.
Yeah, you could just use a Witch Elf as the High Gladiatrix. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like,
what'd you do? I gave her some whips.
Yeah, right. But this is but this is what I think Age of Sigmar needs to be doing constantly, because this is just dragging in more and more people from more and more different game systems. This was announced at the same time as a whole bunch of new Space Marines, and this thing stole the show as per usual. And if they do want Age of Sigmar to grow and thrive, obviously they don't, based on the coverage we've seen. But if they did, this would be the way to go about it. More releases like this, because this is just, we've had in the past 3 months the most incredible releases. Trug is insane. Big Bug is great. Big Pigs have been really good as well. Rules-wise not, but minis have been great. And all the Orc Rages and the other stuff. And now this Flesh Eater Courts release. It's been like a 3 months of Age of Sigmar glut. It's been insane. Like, and Cities, I guess, although that was earlier in the year. And Ionis, I guess, if you like Ionis' sculpt. I'm not sure if some people do like it.
Yeah, I think Ionis' sculpt is cool. I dig it.
So it's dude on the dragon, that's cool. They're bringing Triumph and Treachery back as well. I see.
Yes, they are actually. I was going to ask you both. We should play some Triumph and Treachery. So yeah, Triumph and Treachery is coming back in that book as well, which is going to be very fun.
I loved that.
Yeah, Age of Sigmar Triumph and Treachery. For people who don't know, Triumph and Treachery was a game system that they put in for... Was it in Age of Sigmar? No, it was in Warhammer Fantasy Battles.
No, it was fantasy.
Yeah, it was an 8th edition,
Yeah, so that's a multiplayer way to play.
It was a multiplayer way to play that involved the ability to betray your team.
Yeah.
Which was great.
So if it works in a tournament format, I will 100% be running a Triumph and Treachery event.
You know what I'd say that excites me about that concept, Rob?
Yeah.
Is that would be the true most competitive event, because it's
competitive narrative event.
Treachery. Sorry?
Competitive narrative event.
Yeah, but the thing is, at a competitive event, right, it's like we want to find the best player. But then we have like best overall, and we have all these other things that muddy the water. If you say Triumph and Treachery is about finding the best player, if that means betraying your allies, if that means cutting deals, like if you politic your way to the top as well as you play on the top of the board, that is something beautiful. Because I always remember like playing Triumph and Treachery, and then if someone betrayed the rest of their team, there'd always be that thing where you're like, you never looked at them the same way again and in another game, because you couldn't forget that they'd betrayed you in the last game, which meant you were likely to betray them. Or then people would just like, I remember like just deploying away because I was like, I don't trust you. Like I'd always have a cannon where it could easily get a shot off at their general. And like my opponent, like my teammate would see that and be like, are you planning on shooting my general? I'd be like, I'm not planning on it, but I'm ready. Like, and just like, can you imagine that like there's like Teclis standing there, and behind Teclis there's just 6 Bulgor, and you're like, what's that? And it's like, that's my insurance policy.
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready. Imagine how good that would be in a modern event format, like a Triumph and Treachery event. You're like turning up. Like, you're turning up with, like, whatever, 1,000 points, and you're like, right, I'm about to go into 5 absolute fuckfest scrums, if I don't know what's going to happen. Like, that would be hilarious, So if that works as a tournament format, do you know what, even if it doesn't, I'm going to try and run an event, just free drink, Triumph, Treachery, and tequila.
Yes,
Yes.
that's very nice alliteration.
Yeah, thank you, thank you. That'd be so good. Every time you betray,
Yeah.
you must tequila. That'd be okay.
You got to do a shot. For every shot you take at a friendly, you got to do a shot.
Yeah, you have. Take my money. All right, good. All right, we'll do that event. Well, listen, it's been some really exciting news and gossip from the week just gone, which has been really fun. And if you do want to have a competitive look at the universe, I did already cover that earlier today. This is I record both shows on a Monday. So it's really funny when I get to a Monday night because I feel I have no need to talk about Tournament Warhammer because I've just done it for 4 to 5 hours in the day. So I'm like, it's fine. I've covered that. But if you are interested, Nurgle are really crazy right now, which is fun. You're right, Nath.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Sorry, just a second. There you go.
So Nurgle are doing pretty well. What else is doing really well at the minute? OBR seem to have vanished. Seraphon are back up, which is fun. Skaven, accidentally they broke Skaven with their last release, which is pretty funny. Yeah. They were like, what if you just don't need the rats to move and all the Skaven and the bells were cheaper and the Skaven players were like, you do know this is a 220 point model that can summon a Vermin Lord that's got a 3-up ward save, and they're like, we didn't know that actually.
We did it but you got to roll dice. But now 220, I can take 4. I can take 4.
Yeah. Which is pretty funny. So yeah, the meta is looking really healthy at the minute as well. There's lots going on. People have been winning events all over. There's been some crazy lists. Stormcast have kind of got a comeback. People are just loving running Stormcast of all flavors. People are just yeah, fuck it, I'll play Stormcast, whatever. It's almost like Games Workshop haven't released anything for Stormcast for so long that people are like, maybe Stormcast aren't that bad. Maybe they're cool.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? They're almost the underdogs, which is quite fun. Versus everywhere, which is very interesting.
Makes them interesting again. Yeah.
It does make them really interesting. It does make them super interesting. Okay, Dan, you got any plans between this week and next week?
Just Waterleys. Actually, there's my gaming club, Warped Dice. Shout out to Warped Dice, you bunch of beautiful human beings. Is doing a learning day this weekend. So we've got a bunch of club members who want to get some practice in and play some slow tactical games to get better. We've got a bunch of people who've been keen to get into Age of Sigmar who are going to come along and play little first games ever to kind of learn the game and get into it. So I'm really stoked. It's like a big warm plastic hug just to get people addicted and then drain their wallets. So I'm really excited to kind of make some new friends and get into some new war dollies.
Plastic hug. Nice.
Love that. I still want to really run an event at my place, a club at my place, but running clubs sucks. It takes hours. I just don't have the time.
I mean, I was about to say, where do you squeeze that in?
Yeah, I know. That's what I was trying to say.
I
want someone
do
to
want
run
to
a
throw
club
a shout
for
out.
me.
I do want to throw a shout out to Carson, the Meat King of Canada, for going 5-0 in his pool at finals, then going into the top, and I think he's finished 5th, I believe, out of the top 8 at Worlds with Ogre More Tribes. And the big thing I want to point out is that Carson was there sending us memes while other people were there with their international teammates and club mates breaking down the people they were playing. They had assistance, they had help. Carson went in there with more tribes and did it. And he hit the top 8 and he came 5th. So you big, beautiful meat beast. You beef William Wallace, you legend.
He did turn up. He did turn up like an Ice Road trucker in a check shirt and a mustache. It was like, all right, I've heard there's a tournament. Here's some ogres. Let's play some games.
And the thing is, he plays incredibly well. He is possibly one of the best players I have ever played against. And it's just, but also he's very lovely, quite properly spoken. He'll be just a legend, total legend. And yeah, you're 100% right. Ice Road Trucker makes sense, that's how he keeps the meat fresh. So that's obviously the play there.
Yeah. Okay. And Nathan, between you and next week, any Warhammer? One chance of some Warhammies?
One chance. Getting there, I reckon. Yeah. I might get a paintbrush out.
Oh, some Spider Riders.
Finish up. No, they're done. I've got to finish up Grimcrack and his lads.
Finally, after it's been nerfed, you're like, now's the time.
I'll do it now.
I'll do it now. All right, well, that's exciting. Okay, good. I really hope you do.
Being nerfed.
Well, he used to be able to chain his strike last ability in like a conga line.
Oh yeah.
But now they've made it wholly within,
Oh.
which is much
I didn't
better.
know that.
You didn't know the first bit?
Oh, no, I didn't know the last bit.
Oh,
Yeah.
R.I.P. Sorry for Grincrack. It was sensationally abusive.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
It was a
when-
unit within 3 or something, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
every unit within 3.
In a game where we've eliminated conga lines, for them to be like, the squigs though is cool. Like, you know, like squig conga lines are fine.
Yeah, and fight last conga lines even better. This isn't a drama at all. All right, I really hope you get some painting done. That'd be really fun. I don't think next Monday's show will be live, just for everyone in the chat, because I think I'll be traveling back from Canada. So I'll try and get a schedule sorted out for then. So I guess we'll see each other in a couple of weeks, which will be super fun as well. And at which point we'll be able to go through. I'd love to go through some of the armies of renown and stuff like that. I think that'd be fun to chat through and have a laugh with.
Hell yeah.
So that'd be fun. If you have enjoyed anything you've liked on today's show, then you can obviously join the Honest Wargamer Patreon, help support the show, and there is excitingly a Discord which you join when you sign up. And Dan and Nathan are in it. Will they reply? No. But
I do.
yeah,
I do,
Dan
but
did.
usually
Dan, you came in the other day.
My replies are usually not helpful. However, they are very enthusiastic. They're like an Ungor in combat. A for enthusiasm, F for actual, execution.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. my replies are also just ignore the subject, which is great. Well, I hope everyone has a nice week doing some Age of Sigmar. Don't forget, it's in a great place right now, and which is good for the community. The game's in a great place, the community's in a great place, so everyone should be happy. Thanks for listening to the Honest Wargamer.